Alright, welcome back. I'll show you what I want to do in this video, but first let's do a small recap. This is the movement logic used by our obstacles. Basically, our obstacles move towards one end of the map, aka one trigger, and then upon touching the trigger, our obstacle switches directions. And then after reaching the other trigger, our obstacle switches directions again, which creates a loop. Now, I want to add some detail to our obstacles movement logic. Make it just a tiny bit more complex. But how? Well, in our scene, there are currently only two triggers. One on the left end of our map, and the other on the right end of our map. As an addition, I want to create a few more triggers and put them into our scene. With this, I want to give our obstacles the ability to potentially switch directions before reaching the two ends. Now, let me show you how this new logic will work. When an obstacle hits a trigger, an RNG will determine if the obstacle will switch directions right there and then, or will the obstacle simply ignore the trigger and move on. But here's the quick note. If our obstacle reaches the end of our map, the obstacle has to switch directions. So when our obstacle is at the end of the map, we don't run any RNGs. We have to switch directions or our obstacle will fall off the map. So our red lines here, or red triggers, will be different than our blue triggers, the ends of our map. With all that being said, let's move to our Unity editor. Okay, first things first, we need to create our new triggers. We already have two triggers in our scene, so what I will do is just copy these triggers and then paste them a few times across our map. So instead of recording all that, I'll just skip ahead. Alright, now as you can see, we now have 6 triggers in our scene. Before we move on, I want to resize... Oh. Why am I having voice cracks, man? I'm not a fucking teenager. But whatever. As I was saying, what I want to do is resize these triggers. I don't want them to be this wide, so I'll just make them thinner. We'll go to their X scale, and instead of 1, we can make it maybe something like 0.2. You can see the difference. And I think that looks much better. And it will function much better too. Now, as I said earlier, these two triggers need to be different than this trigger at the end of the map. When an obstacle touches the first two triggers, it has a chance of switching directions. But on the other hand, if our obstacle touches the third trigger, the farthest away, the one on the end of the map, then it has to switch directions. So I want to set the difference right now by creating two tags for our triggers. One of them should be called end trigger, and the other should be called a midway trigger. Going to our selected triggers inspector window, let's go to tag. And just like we did with the player and ground tag, we will create another tag. Hold on, did we create a player tag? No, we didn't, never mind. I saw the player tag and thought, maybe I did that in a previous video, but never mind. Just like we did previously with the ground tag, we'll create another tag. and we're gonna call it end trigger. Then we're gonna create another one called midway trigger. Now we need to assign these tags. We need to assign the end trigger tag to, well, end triggers. And then the other four can have the midway trigger tag. Okay, that looks fine. Now we're gonna get into the part where we start coding. So let's get back to our obstacle behavior script. Okay, for this video we'll strictly work within the onTrigger enter method. Let's start with using the two trigger tags that we just created with an if statement. We want to make it so if the tag is end trigger, then we switch the RNG altogether and switch directions. Not switching, skip. That's better. But on the other hand, if the tag is midway trigger, then we initiate. Is that how it's written? Yeah, that's correct, I think. Anyway, then we will initiate the RNG. It's as simple as that. So for the first part of statement, we'll write this: if other, by other I mean this, if other game object tag equals to end trigger, then we switch directions immediately. But if the tag is midway trigger, then now we create our RNG. Let's create an int variable that we can use in this statement. Let's call it turn chance. Then within the RNG section of our onTrigger enter method, we are gonna assign a random value to our turn chance. We're gonna write turn chance equals to random range, not 0 and 2, but rather let's do 0 and 5, with 5 as the maximum value and 0 as the minimum value. As I said previously, while working with random range with integer values, the second value, the second number, is as exclusive. So when we run this, we can get 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4, but we can never get 5. Now we want to make it so in this statement, switching directions happens only when our turn chance variable is a certain value. So let's say 4. In that case, we'll write if turn chance equals to 4, then we're gonna switch our directions. If not, instead of else if, we'll just write else. In this case, we'll just exit the method with the keyword return, which pretty much means stop doing the rest of this method. Okay, we are done. So let's save our script and test it in our Unity editor.